Hi, I'm Eric Pratt from US Broadcast Distribution, and today we're going to be talking about Waterbird's MS-XL. It's a way of adding dynamic movement to your live productions. A few weeks ago we talked about their MS Pro, a smaller scale unit perfect for DSLRs or small PTZ cameras and smaller cinema cameras. The MS-XL is its bigger brother, and it is capable of handling massive payloads and being ordered in any length. So we can mount this unit in any kind of environment where you'd want to have a track that can move a camera from one side of a production to the other. We can add incredible live production movements all at the click of a button. So if I want to, I can position the camera at the midpoint here, and I can bring up our other shot so you can see the back of the unit, and we can take a look at the head itself. So this is the carriage. This large box here is capable of receiving power from either a DMX/XLR connector or a 26-volt battery. It's capable of being communicated with over that DMX directly to their controller here, the MS Phoenix. It's also capable of taking control over Ethernet from software or other kinds of control surfaces. So there's a number of different ways and workflows that we can use to connect controllers to make the unit move the way that we want. And we can explore some of those a little bit shortly. So let's take a closer look at what makes this unit awesome. First, we're going to talk about the rail components themselves. They're made up of three parts: these plastic modular pieces, which are flexible against each other, the belt, and the rails. The modular pieces are held together by these screws, and once we get the shape of the rails put together the way that we want, we tighten this down, and then we install the rails and the belt. Now, these can be ordered in any length, so we get as many of these modular pieces as we need, and then a belt and rails as long as we want. If in the future we want to order more of these rail segments, we just order for a nominal fee a longer belt and longer rails. From below, each one of these modules has a 3/8 mounting point, meaning that we have a lot of places that we can connect, and the Waterbird units come with these junior mountable adapters, which give it a lot of stability. So once these are plugged in and screwed in real tight and attached to a real heavy-duty junior support, you get a lot of stability, which is important in the unit. Now let's take a look at the motion controller itself. It's this box here which sits on top of a platform on which you can mount various things like cameras or PT heads, pretty much anything that you'd want it to attach, but primarily cameras. And there are a number of different connections here that enable different workflows. So right now what I have is I have power coming from the power supply into the MIDI port. And there are a number of different ways that we can wire this up. We can, for example, connect the MS Phoenix, the controller, to the power supply, and then from the power supply through to here, so we have a fully wired connection. Or in this case, we have power coming from here, and we're connecting via the MS Phoenix via wirelessly, and then we can get the power off of something like a 26-volt V-mount, which can drive both the controller and any accessory items. There are also a number of different connections here. There is a 12-volt out, there's Ethernet, so we can have a full IP-based infrastructure. If we have something like a Panasonic RP series control surface, we can use this because this thing speaks Panasonic HTTP protocol, and then we could go in Ethernet here, wired or wirelessly, and then out of here into the PTZ camera. There are a number of other workflows that we're working on here as well. There's a USB port for firmware update. There is a 2.5mm camera trigger, and then there's another 4-pin 12-volt output. So we can use this to supply power to a variety of different devices that are on the platform. So there's a couple of the different connections and ideas for workflows for working with the motion controller. This is Waterbird's MS Phoenix. The controller will handle a large number of the facets of positioning the carriage on the track. It has presets, it's got a joystick to move the carriage back and forth, it's got a knob to control the speed and the speed at which it goes up and down. the amount of time that it stops at each end and turning the ping pong functionality on and off. Now that's the front. One of the coolest things is we can see that we've got this plugged into 12 volt power. We could also bring this in via that same DMX cable that you saw on the back of the carriage. We can connect that via wire from the power supply through the controller to the carriage. But the neat thing is, I'm going to unplug this 12 volt. You see it's still working because it has a battery inside, which means I can just run willy-nilly with this, which is, again, really great. On the back here, we have that 12 volt power that we just unplugged, and then we have connectors for pedals. These are if you want to operate the unit using your feet, and then this is the DMX and power in and out. One other workflow I wanted to describe is an IP workflow using the motion control software from Waterbird. So it's this panel that you see on the screen here, and it has a slider which says where exactly on the track the slider is, so you can see it zipping around there. I've described a few positions. These are presets. You can think of them that way. And I've also set the speed really high so you can see sort of the maximum with which it can move around. So I set the max speed, and then I set acceleration to be medium. But if I set acceleration to a lower point, it's almost down to 0. It does a very slow acceleration, so it's a slow ramp up and ramp down. But if I put it up a bit, you can see it's going to move pretty quick. So we've connected to this IP address, which we've assigned to the controller, and I'm just connecting to it from this computer, which is on the same network. And I can put it to home and the middle. I can stop it if I don't like where it's at. We also can trigger the that camera trigger point, that 2.5 mil, to either trigger the camera to, if we're doing motion control or time lapse. There's also focus is another one of the ring on that connector. We can also supply 12 volt, see what that is. So this is the 12 volt output currently. It's not drawing anything because there's nothing connected, but the control software is pretty easy to use, and it's another one of the workflows that might help you integrate Waterbird into your environment. Another possible workflow to extend that idea of IP control is a PTZ Cam Electrum. And the neat thing about the Electrum is it has a 5,000 foot range, and it carries Ethernet, video, and intercom. And in this case, we're taking the HDMI out of the PTZ Cam 4K camera into the Electrum transmitter, and then we're connecting the Electrum transmitter to the Waterbird motion controller, and then from the motion controller through to the PTZ cam. So we have a couple of different things going on there. If we had a 26 volt battery, we could run this in a completely wireless scenario where we're taking something, an IP control from an RP series control surface or their motion control software, sending that IP control through the receiver to the transmitter and then to the controller, and we can also send PTZ camera control. If you want to learn more about that, we did a little bit, went into a little bit more depth in the MS Pro video. So we showed an actual fully wireless solution there. But this is a great way if you're considering having IP control of both PTZ camera and the Waterbird controller to make this a completely wireless solution so that you can actually have a 40-foot long track and not worry about wires at all, which has a lot of advantages. Waterbird's MS-XL adds a whole new dimension to your production's creativity, allowing you to have a camera anywhere within a venue without having to have an operator, and it can move back and forth repeatedly over and over again without any necessity or guidance from it. We can bundle this with a large number of products, control surfaces, PTZ cameras, PTZ camera automation software. There are definitely a lot of workflows that we are interested in working with here and taking a look at. And if you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at US Broadcast and ask us more about getting Waterbird into your production today.